so much for tuning in. If you've been wondering or you were curious how I made my first $150,000 when starting my online coaching business, this episode is going to be for you. I'm going to be walking you through like the 5 key things that I did when I first started to make my first, 150 grand while I was still working a full-time job, and what I would do differently or what I would continue doing going into 2023. So I'm really pumped for today's episode. I just can't wait to share this with you guys. So we're going to get into it. After I finish up the live stream today, we will be, I'll be doing a Q&A with you guys as well. So there's all the details. We're going to just get into it. All right. So I do have some notes here because I want to make sure, I took copious notes this morning as I was preparing for this episode to make sure that I did not miss anything. I started my business back in 2017 when I was living in Detroit, Michigan, and starting the business, technically I started the business in 2016. I was still working full-time. I was a full-time engineer, and then I went full-time in the coaching business in 2017 while I was living in Michigan. And I think the context of that is really important. I was working 50 to 60 hours a week, starting an online coaching business. I did not have any, I didn't have an existing audience. I didn't have money for paid ads. So I'm going to walk you through the 5 things that I did that really aided and allowed me to make my first 150 grand while I was still working my full-time job. And these things that I'm sharing with you now, like I mentioned before, these things that I'm going to share with you during this episode are things that I would do over again going into 2023. So if you have questions as we're going through this, definitely pop them in the comments. If you hear me say something that really resonates, throw some hearts up on the screen or share this live stream with one of your friends and tell them to come join us at the table, okay? Okay, so let's get into it. The very first thing that I did to make my first 150 grand that I would do over again is live streams. You're gonna want to take your notes while we're going through this because I'm literally breaking everything down for you. Okay, first thing is live streams, and I did 55 live streams in my first 18 months of starting my coaching business, and this is really important. I care about sharing the numbers. 55 live streams equaled 150 grand. Okay? When we start to do the math, and let's actually do the math. If we look at $150,000 divided by 55 live streams, each live stream that I published generated over $2,700 in revenue for my business. I was working 50 to 60 hours per week, and I didn't have any money to spend on paid ads. Since I couldn't buy my audience, which is what you do when you're using paid advertising, I had to focus on how I was going to attract my audience instead. When you're building an online business, you really have to decide what is going to be your primary source of lead generation and what are you going to do to build your business and to generate leads and to grow your audience. One, baby, either we're paying money for it, we're buying the audience, we're buying the attention, or we have to earn the attention. So because I wasn't in the position where I didn't have the extra money to go pay money on ads, so I focused on organic content creation using live streams. Live streams is what allowed me to quickly build trust, especially since I did not have an existing audience. And this is a really important attribute. Like if you do not have an existing audience, people only know you in real life, but you're trying to use social media to generate leads, you have to figure out how you're going to generate trust and build trust with people who don't know who you are. And doing live streams helped me do that quicker and faster. Strangers online soon became less suspicious because they could see my face, they could hear my voice, and they began to resonate with my point of view. And doing regular live streams also helped me to learn how to recognize my value and eventually learn how to effectively articulate it. I think when I was first starting my business, and this might be the position that you're in, is like, that you can help people, that you can deliver results, that you can provide value. But knowing that you can provide value doesn't really mean much if the prospect doesn't know that you can provide the value and you don't know how to articulate it in a way that they can understand, right? So I had to you have to practice learning your voice and practice learning how to communicate. And it's a communication skill. Sales is really about effective communication. You understanding what the prospect needs and aligning their problem with a solution that you can provide through the services that you sell. So doing live streams really was my that was me shooting in the gym. That was my practice of, practicing showing my face, practicing showing up on camera, practicing articulating my value, practicing, like learning how to even discover what my value was based off of how my audience would respond, based off of, you know what I mean? Like how my content and what I was talking about and the point of view that I shared, how that was resonating with my audience. So what really worked for me in order to get results, and you're going to want to write this down when it comes to doing live streams, is first is I went live on a consistent cadence. I treated my live streams like a Netflix show. Every, back then in 2017, Scandal was like it, Shonda Rhimes dominated. Thank God it's Thursday on, what was it, ABC Network, I think? Every Thursday, you knew. I knew when I got home on Thursdays, baby, don't call me, okay? Don't text message me. Don't ask me what I'm doing. Don't ask me to go out. I'm watching Shonda Rhimes. Like, it's Grey's Anatomy. It's Scandal. It's How to Get Away with Murder. Go live on a consistent cadence so that your audience can actually begin to expect when to hear from you and get, you start to build up anticipation for wanting to actually show up to your lives. I started doing Q&As at the end of each of my live streams, or just having dedicated Q&A calls. This was one of the things that I did that really helped me start building trust and actually starting to have a two-way conversation with my audience. Having a Q&A, people are able to, you're real time hearing what are the questions that they have, and what's influencing how they're making buying decisions. What are they privately thinking? And now, them asking the question is them publicly sharing. So at the end of my live streams, when I was doing a topic even similar to this episode, at the very end, I would always do Q&A, or I would have dedicated Q&A calls, and I would prepare my audience for that so that they could know that that's what to expect when I went live. And that was also doing Q&A at the end kind of forced people who really wanted me to answer their question to actually watch the entire episode. So it was kind of that was my way of creating a cliffhanger. I started sending direct messages to everyone who joined me live to thank them and to continue the conversation. One thing that I did early on in my business that I still do today, now that I'm running a multi-7-figure business, is never underestimate the power of human-to-human connection. You are always talking to a real human being on the other side of that computer or the other side of your smartphone. Always. Whoever is listening to you, watching your live streams, watching the replay is a real human being. And I would, back then I had more time than I had money. So I really focused on anytime that somebody would go live, I would send them a direct message after the live stream was over, thank them for coming, and probably ask one follow-up question. What was your biggest takeaway? Or what about today's topic? Why did you choose to show up today? In that way, that opened up a dialogue. It opened up a conversation. And those conversations is what eventually led to me getting my first few paid clients. Allowing my live stream viewers to join me live. This also promoted my live to their audience as well. So when I would go live on Instagram or I would go live on Facebook, I would allow my audience members to actually join me during the live stream. So we would either do Q&A where you could see their face on the live stream. I would bring them up on live stream with me, or I would schedule interviews or Q&A or coaching calls publicly where another person could join me on the live stream. And when you do that, not only are you, creating this live stream for your existing audience, but that person is going to promote that live stream to their audience. So that was my first kind of dabble into leveraging other people's audiences as a way of growing my own audience and expanding my reach without having to pay for it. That was 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 5 is not overthinking it. I did my lives during my lunch breaks. I did my lives when I was sitting in my car. I did my lives in my living room after dinner while I was on my couch. I used my iPhone. I used to prop up my iPhone. I still do this sometimes today on books and candles on my coffee table, or I bought an iPhone holder so that I could put that on the dashboard of my Ford Focus at the time, my Ford Fusion at the time. And I would go live in my car during my lunch breaks. I think the biggest advantage that I had early on is that I was not worried about what people thought. And I wasn't afraid of people watching me fail because nobody knew who I was anyway. So I think if you're just getting started, or if you're hesitant of incorporating live videos into your marketing strategy next year, that's something you got to just don't overthink it. The beauty of live streams is that it's not produced versus if you were choosing to create YouTube videos, for example, People expect a level of production on the YouTube platform. But when you're going live on Instagram or live on Facebook or live on LinkedIn, it's live. Like, nobody's expecting for it to be super perfect or overly polished, or for like everything, like for you not to have any ahs, or make any mistakes. Like, they're expecting for it to feel like a real conversation, it like as if you pulled up on them during a lunch break, because that might have been what you did. So like, don't overthink it. And if you're like worried about messing up, going live is actually better, because people don't have this expectation that it's going to be overly perfect or overly produced anyway. The last thing about going live that I did was reading the posts my followers published, reading comments and questions posted in like niche free Facebook groups. Those, reading the comments and knowing what, like doing researching what my audience was actually posting about on their social media channels. That was my way to get market research that inspired me, or was a source of inspiration when I was trying to come up with content topics. Like, a lot of what I teach my clients today is creating content based off of the objections that they're getting on sales calls, for example. But back then, when I first was starting my business, I wasn't getting sales calls. Like, I didn't have any existing clients. Like, I was just getting started. So I was like, how do I figure out what this audience is actually thinking? What is influencing how they're making the buying decisions? How do I know what they even, like, what they're struggling with? And I would go read the comments of their Instagram accounts, read the comments that they were publishing on their Facebook accounts, or go into other free Facebook groups and like read the threads and pay attention to the questions that people were asking. And that would be my source of market research. So that's the first thing that I did, and that I still do to this day, and I'm going to absolutely continue doing as we transition and move into next year, of live streams. Using live video as a primary way for you to build trust and grow your audience is invaluable, especially when you don't want to have a lot of reliancy or dependency on paid advertising. And like I mentioned, I did 55 live streams in the first 18 months of me starting my business. That's how I made my first $150,000. So that's number one. The second thing that I did was I stopped selling cheap offers and I increased my prices regularly. Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to share the price point of the offers that I was selling back in the day. And please let this be a no judgment zone, because honey child, we all start somewhere, okay? The first person, before I even share with you guys the numbers about like what the price point was of the offers that I was selling back in the day, I want to make sure that I highlight this point. The first person that you have to sell is yourself. In the beginning, your prices are a reflection of your self-belief. Okay? In the beginning, your prices are a reflection of your self-belief. Rarely are they a true reflection of the actual value that you deliver. You know, when I was working full time, I was only used to getting paid based off of what some white man dictated my value was worth. Like, there was some white man that determined what my salary was, what my annual increase was going to be, how much money I was going to get made. I was only used to some white man telling me how much I was supposed to get paid. I wasn't used to little black girl Jerisha dictating and deciding how much she was going to charge. So in the very beginning, like my prices were a reflection of my self-belief. They were not congruent or in alignment with the value that I was able to actually deliver. And part of that reason was because I wasn't even really aware of what my value was. I didn't know how to articulate it. I was still trying to really discover what it was in this industry and within this marketplace. So like, the first person you have to sell is yourself in the beginning. And you have to believe in yourself and be willing to bet on yourself in that regard. So in the first 6 months of me starting my business, I started out selling a $19 ebook. It was called How She Hustles. I would not be surprised if you are listening to this and you actually downloaded that thing years and years ago. I had a $39 a month membership, and I had my first $180 group program. They were hard AF to sell. Hard AF. And they were not profitable at all. Those first 6 months of me running my business, I had got a few sales. I made about $6,000. Child, I ain't really actually make no money. I made sales, but I did not make money because I was spending a lot of money trying to figure out how to run a membership site. I was spending money on how to build an ebook. I was creating all these complicated funnels, trying to sell this $19 and $29 stuff and write this down as a lesson learned. Just because something is cheaper doesn't mean that it's easier to sell. Quote me on that, okay? Can we have a little tweetable moment? Just because something is cheaper does not mean it's easier to sell. It's the same amount of effort to sell a $37 offer as it is to sell a $3,000 offer. Do not let anybody fool you. I don't care. Like, selling is selling. Convincing somebody, addressing objections, aligning value, articulating value, closing the sale, building the trust to facilitate a transaction, all those steps are the exact, like, you still have to do all those steps if you're selling a $37 thing or if you're selling a $3,000 thing. So, like, I decided to stop mimicking what I saw millionaires doing, and instead I focused on modeling what millionaires did when they were at the season of business that I was in. This was like one of the biggest mistakes that I made early on, is that I got really distracted trying to mimic what I saw success look like. And I think a lot of us do that. Like, we will be like, okay, well, this person looks successful. They're publishing their receipts. They're out here securing the bag. They look like they have it going on. And we mimic what they're doing at the season of business that they are at, versus modeling, okay, this person is successful. What did they do when they were trying to make their first $5,000? What did they do when they were trying to make their first $20,000, their first $50,000, their first $100,000? Like, we have to model the steps they took, not mimic what we see them doing where they are today, because where they are is not where we are. And that was one of the biggest lessons I had to learn early on, is that the difference between mimicking and modeling behavior. And so I decided to stop doing that. And I focused on, again, modeling that behavior instead. So after those initial 6 months of me, like, selling all the cheap shit and, like, getting nowhere, I started selling private one-on-one coaching. And this is when I flipped the funnel. I used to hold the belief that, like, you had to sell something cheap in order to convince somebody to buy something expensive from you. Have you ever thought that or believed that? Like, I had to bust that belief because it was not true. Quite honestly, for the type of problem that I wanted to solve, and with the past experience that I already had, I started my first online business back actually in college, my senior year of school. So I had people kind of knew me and associated me with that. I had made over $50,000 in 1 year starting that business when I was like 22 years old. And I had a lot of high level corporate experience. You know, I was leading a $400 million pipeline project. I had a lot of business acumen from my mentors and from the exposure that I had. So when I think about, like, my past skill sets and what I was bringing into the business, I had to make sure that what I was actually offering, it wasn't asinine for me to say that I could charge a higher ticket offer from the get-go based off of my skill sets and based off of the sophistication that I was already bringing to the table because of my past experiences. So I flipped the funnel and I started selling private one-on-one coaching. And I started slowly and regularly increasing my prices. So I went from a $2,000 private one-on-one offer to $2,500 to $3,000 to $3,500. And I would raise my price every 2 to 3 clients that I would convert. So every time I raised my price, like, I ended up working with better and better and better and better and more qualified clients. Meaning they were, like, more eager to do the work the more they paid. And they were more fun to work with because, like, they wanted to do the work. Like, you know, have you ever had a client that's like, you believe in them more than they believe in themselves? Or, like, you want them to be successful more than they want it for themselves? And, like, you can't force a coaching client to do the work. Like, it has to be a reciprocal relationship. So, you know, I started regularly graduating my prices over time and slowly increasing them over time. And I worked with about 8 to 10 private one-on-one clients, and I started to notice a pattern of repetition. And this was a really important turning point for me in my business, because at this point I had made probably around like 30 or 40 grand. But this was the key turning point when I started to notice a pattern of repetition. I started to notice the problem that they wanted, like, there was a pattern of repetition in the problem they wanted me to help them solve. There was a pattern of repetition in the results being achieved with the help of my coaching. And there was a pattern of repetition with the sequence of steps that followed, which led to that result. So, like, I started noticing these similarities from client to client, and I started to see a growing demand of people wanting me to, like, help them solve that pattern that I was noticing. And I was building more demand with my live streams because I was becoming more consistent. People kind of started expecting to see me on live. People were sharing my live streams. And because of the past clients that I had, I was getting more referrals. So all these things were kind of like culminating together over like another 6-month period. And that helped me to recognize that my clients' problems were not unique to just them, but rather they were commonalities for a particular niche. And this is really important. Like when we're working with clients privately in the beginning, or maybe you're working with clients privately right now, sometimes we think that the real value is in our ability to like customize the delivery from person to person. And in the beginning it is. But after a while, you should, and you probably will start to see again, you'll start to notice those patterns of recognition. Those patterns of repetition, seeing a pattern and a similarity with the steps that you're taking, the order you're taking those steps, the type of person that gets the result, the type of results that they're getting. And that is a really that means you've hit a gold mine. That means you have an opportunity to really elevate your business model and take things to the next level because of that pattern of repetition that you've been able to kind of discover and unpack. So I had another caveat during this time period as I started noticing these things is that I had just been promoted to the lead engineer of a $400 million pipeline project. And that was a huge, huge step for me in my career. But it also came with a massive learning curve because like your girl... I knew what I was doing, but I didn't really know what I was doing, right? Like that was a huge learning curve for me. And also I was just kind of like catching my groove with these private one-on-one clients, but I had hit like a ceiling that I could not handle more private one-on-one clients without either burning out or like negatively impacting my performance at work. And child, I was not ready to I'm still working full time, okay? Your girl still got good benefits, okay? Your girl, grandma's still happy that her little baby is an engineer. Like, I didn't want to jeopardize my 9 to 5 because that was my source of my livelihood. So if I wanted to grow, something had to shift. Either my prices had to go up so I could work with fewer clients at a higher price point, or I had to start working with clients in a group container or in a group program. I had to figure out where I was going to create leverage, either by raising my prices or transitioning to group. And that leads me to point number 3. Point number 3 was that I started selling cohort-based coaching programs. And I created a new offer based on the validation, based on the demand, and based on the patterns that I had noticed when I was working with private one-on-one clients. I really hope you hear me when I say that. I created a new offer based on validation, demand, and patterns that I already had noticed when working with private one-on-one clients. Back then, I didn't realize how smart of a move that was. Now, Jerisha, current day, I understand how valuable that level of me making that decision was for my business. Because the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clients that I've coached up until now, that's one of the biggest things that clients make a mistake of, is they try to create a group program or a new offer that is not rooted in what they have already validated with private one-on-one clients or from past experience. Or they try to create an offer that has not already been, they haven't yet validated the demand to see whether or not people will actually pay for it. And then you end up going down this path of selling an offer that there's no demand for, you haven't validated the results for, and it's one of the biggest mistakes that can really derail your momentum while you're growing your business. So first validate, first recognize the patterns, first build demand. And you can do that when you're working with private one-on-one clients. I'm going on a slight tangent, but too many people in the online space today undermine the value of private one-on-one when you're just getting started. Everybody's like, well, that's not a scalable business model. Baby boo, when you're just starting your business, you don't have anything to scale. You barely making money. We don't need to focus on having a scalable offer when you have not yet learned how to consistently sell. Scaling is a step 4, step 5 problem to solve. That's not your problem today. So I want to make sure that we pause there for a moment to discuss that, because that was one of the smartest decisions I made when I was getting started, that it's the most critical decision that business owners need to continue making. And I think it's one of the things that people try to skip. You cannot rush your way to success. It's like trying to climb a ladder by jumping to the top rung. You have to respect the process. You have got to respect the process. So seeing the consistency in client results really grew my confidence too. Because like I said earlier, knowing a white man had always dictated how much I was paid before. This is the first time where Black girl Jerisha was dictating how much she got paid. And I had to build my confidence. Like I had to build my own confidence and my own self-belief. So seeing the consistency in the client results really helped me build my confidence. And it gave me more certainty that I was ready to actually try out a group program at a higher ticket price point. Because before, like I mentioned, I had done a group program, but it was cheap. $180, $37. And listen, it just, don't do that. It shit did not work. So I knew that transitioning to group delivery needed to be done delicately. Like I needed to be mindful, I needed to be intentional, and I needed to pace myself. And I needed to do this delicately so that I didn't again, I was just starting to build a really positive reputation in the industry. And people were starting to know who I was. Like I was starting to build up a little bit, the internet is big, but the industry is really small. So I was starting to build up a good reputation, and I did not want to tarnish my reputation by growing too quickly into a business model that I couldn't actually sustain and deliver. And which I saw a lot of other coaches doing. They were scaling prematurely. And child. I am not trying to be the T on the Facebook group. Like I am not for the drama, honey. Okay. So I think sometimes the reason why coaches run into issues when they start having like damaging client relationships or damaging client experience is because they're trying to scale too fast. They're trying to bite off more than what they can sustainably handle. And they try to again, skip steps versus there is no rush. Like when you're building your business, we have got to learn how, again, to respect the process and know that and have some faith in what God has put on your heart. Okay. Like God needs to be in this conversation. Because sometimes we're trying to create results on our own might versus operating out of obedience in regards to the step that God is instructing us to take. So honor your process. We ain't in no rush. A lot of the time when we just operate out of obedience, everything that we need, what will happen? Will be provided. So I was like, I saw enough people being canceled and slandered online because they prematurely tried to scale and they weren't able to handle the client demand on the back end. I was like, I don't have to learn that lesson the hard way. I will take my time and slow my little hot tail down. Okay. So here's what I focused on as I was transitioning to cohort-based programs. Okay. Y'all ready? I want you to write down these things specifically around cohort-based programs. So the first thing that I did was I niched down based on the best clients that I had worked with. This is really important. I tell my clients this today. If you get my niche PDF that you can download by clicking the link in my Instagram bio, I talk about this there. I talk about this all the time. You want to niche down, not based on just what you want, but based off the data of what is true about the best clients that you have worked with. That's the first thing. The second thing was that I defined a specific program promise that was congruent with what my past clients hired me to help them solve and what they were able to achieve. So there was congruency. I started to clarify, okay, I started to notice what are the patterns that I'm seeing in regards to the results that my clients are getting. What can I confidently promise? And how can I craft that into a program promise statement for the offer? Really important. The third thing was that I aligned the price with the expected return on investment based on the results of the past clients. I was not guessing about what the return on investment would be, but rather using data to really clarify and make that decision. The fourth thing was that I determined the length of my program based on what? Based on how long it took my best performing clients to achieve the promise. And fifth is that I got clear on the benefits that a small group would offer that a client would not get by working with me privately. I prepared for this objection. Anytime that you're transitioning from private one-on-one to a group coaching container, that's the one objection we always have to address and overcome, especially when your audience is accustomed to being able to work with you privately on their own. Most people think that private access is the better value. You have got to start elevating your messaging and adjusting the positioning of your program so that your audience starts to actually believe that there is more value in getting group than there is hiring you privately. And as you start to work with more private one-on-one clients, you'll start to recognize what that value is, but you have to prepare to handle that objection because it's the one that everybody will get. So out of those 5 things that I shared, did you notice anything? All of the decisions that I made were based on data from past clients. Write that down, put it on a sticky note. What is the data telling me from my best performing clients? What is the data informing me of from my past clients? This is what made my transition to group work so well, because I focused on repackaging what was already successful with private one-on-one clients into the exact offer that I was selling as a group program. I used the data from the past clients to inform how I structured every aspect of the offer, every aspect of the container. So I think this is one of the most important things. When people are transitioning to group, a lot of the time they think they have to create a new offer, solve a new problem, address a different audience than what they've been marketing and selling the entire time they've been building their business. In actuality, that is not what you need to do. You just need to replace the demand of what you've created with private one-on-one and transition to being able to hold and deliver on that demand in a group container. And just use all the data from your past clients to inform the decisions for how you structure that entire offer. So while I had confidence in the value that I delivered, I was still developing my ability to articulate my value. And this took me, like I said, 2 or 3 years to really master. So like if you are somebody right now where you're like, I don't really know how to articulate my value, I struggle at articulating my value, like it takes 2 or 3 years to really learn how to master that ability, that form of communication. And while I had paid clients, I still did not have a large audience. So like I had a very small audience at this time in my business, but I was still earning trust in the industry and I was still building demand, which is what helped me make the transition too. So the other thing when I transitioned to group delivery, I had to figure out how do I reduce perceived risk that I knew prospects would have. As you start introducing a new offer or selling a new offer, perceived risk is something that you always have to be mindful of and figure out how are you going to manage. How do you reduce the perceived risk that a prospect has when they're making a buying decision? So I was thinking about, okay, what can I do to reduce perceived risk? Because I'm still building up clout in the industry. I'm not some bigwig. Like I'm still a young thug out here on the blocks of these internet streets, right? So I decided to launch a cohort-based program, meaning there would be a clear start and end date, and I would teach my classes live. All clients would be working on the same modules, the same material at the exact same time, and I limited the number of spots that clients could have. I limited the number of spots of people who could join the cohort. So all of those elements is what created urgency and scarcity, which matched my maturity in business. Listen, y'all, I'm going to slow this part down. The elements created urgency and scarcity, and the urgency and scarcity elements that I was using matched my maturity in business. Your maturity in business is so important for you to be mindful of. And goes back to even what I talked about earlier about be mindful of, don't mimic what you see millionaires doing. Their maturity in business is so much more evolved and advanced than what yours is. People who've been in business for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years have a level of trust that you do not have purely because they've been doing it longer than you. They have a reputation. People kind of know who they are. There's a level of credibility that they've already been established from all the results they've already done. I think about, I don't know if you follow football. I really don't follow football, but Deion Sanders has been like shaking up the industry. That's like the only college coach that I know. But what Deion Sanders has been able to do at Jackson State and even what he's been able to do now that he's transitioned over to Colorado is like, I think, I was watching one of his interviews and I was watching the interview, like the talk that he gave to his students his football players at Jackson State when he was letting them know that he was going to Colorado. And then I watched the interview that he did when he went to Colorado for these new kids. First and foremost, if y'all haven't watched those interviews, just go on YouTube and Google like Deion Sanders, Colorado, like very, very entertaining to watch. But when you think about how he was, a lot of people or a lot of the comments were really talking about, was Deion Sanders like too aggressive or too forward? Was he being too blunt? Like the conversation that he had with those students is similar to the types of conversations they would have in the NFL. And the thing is that Deion Sanders can say whatever the hell he wants to say because there's a level of respect that he has because of the decade of experience he had when he was playing in the league, that he's able to borrow that credibility from all the work that he's done in his earlier years of his career, which gives him the privilege of saying and doing things that other college football coaches cannot do, because they don't have the same reputation. They don't have the same credibility. They don't have the same, they just can't do that because they not him. They don't have the same receipts. So the same thing is true for you and your business. As you're growing, the strategies and the marketing and the sales and the positioning, the scarcity, the urgency tactics that you deploy, they need to be congruent with what your maturity in business is and what you can command based off the reputation that you have built. That's the point that I'm trying to make there. So, and meaning that use real urgency and create real scarcity. Do not do none of this fake stuff. I don't know what business coaches are going around telling people to have fake urgency, fake scarcity, using deadline funnels saying, oh, the sale ends today, knowing damn well the sale is going to happen tomorrow, the next day, and the day after that. You do not need to use manipulative tactics to make money. I'm going to say that again. You do not need to use manipulative tactics in order to make money. We don't need to do that. You can ethically make a crap ton of money online. You can use permission-based sales in order to enroll somebody into your program. You do not need to pressure, unethically persuade, or try to force somebody into a buying decision. Your job is never to control somebody's decision. Your job is to create an environment where the prospect has given consent and you are communicating a clear invitation for them to decide on what they want to do next. That is it. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I learned and I want to share with you is that you do not need to manipulate your way into making money. You can absolutely grow and make more money ethically while operating out of integrity, while remaining true to your values. Okay? Because at the end of the day, you're going to have your one-on-one with God. And karma, we already know who that is, okay? She's that girl, okay? She's that girl, okay? So being ethical in your marketing was a value I wasn't willing to compromise, and it's a value that you do not have to compromise as well. So the program that I ended up selling was a six-month coaching program. I had 2 live retreats. I had 6 spots, and it was $9,000. I did a series of live streams over a 3-week period to inform, educate, and promote this new offer to my audience on Facebook. And I had an application process to qualify those leads, and I did sales calls on Zoom to help the prospects make their buying decision. That was the offer. That's how I sold it. I filled 5 spots of my 6. Okay, I filled 5 of my 6. I've never actually booked out ever in my career, which is, it is what it is. I think I'm still a little bit butthurt about that. I've never actually sold out anything before, but I sold 5 of my 6 spots. I made $45,000. Plus I enrolled a few of my last private one-on-one clients. And in that month, I secured $60,000 in sales in 1 month. Child. The way that I went to work the next day, you couldn't tell me nothing. Absolutely nothing. I was walking into meetings with my manager, the VPs. Child. I had a different pep in my step, okay? You could not tell me nothing. I'm like, these white folks do not know how much money I made last night. They don't know. They do not know. I just made over $60,000 in sales in 1 month. That was damn near my salary for the entire year. That's literally how I felt. Literally how I felt. I'm like, y'all can't tell me nothing. I'm over here flipping hair for no reason. I'm over here just baby, y'all just don't know what my Stripe account did this past month, okay? I was feeling myself. So this moves into step number 4 of what I did to make my first $150K. I started lean launching. The month of success, that month of success blew my mind. 60K in 1 month, like I said, was almost my entire year's salary, okay? So the engineer in me, this is what I did. I went back and I actually documented everything that I did. I paid attention to the patterns. I noticed every time I'd go live, people who watch live were more prone to actually start a private conversation with me. The more that I showed up live, the more prone my audience was of starting private conversations with me in the direct message. Especially if they have been lurking around in my audience for a while, like especially those silent lingerers who like lurk online. The more that I showed my face, the more they were willing to share their face or at least start the conversation. I also noticed that most people don't watch me live. So that was something else I noticed when I went back and looked at my data, is that most people who consume my content were not there with me live when I recorded it. So they would watch it later. So they would like watch the replay, or they would watch it a few days later. And then having the content for people to consume made a huge difference in how my sales calls would flow. So I noticed that when I went live, a few people, like 3 people, 7 people, 12 people would show up to my live streams. But I would get 200, 300, 400 people who would watch my live streams after I had published it. And then I noticed that for the people that I was getting on sales calls, they were binging my content. So they would watch 2, 3, 4 of my live streams back to back. So they had binged, 3-4 hours of my content. And by the time they got on the call, they were like, girl, I just watched your last 4 live streams. I already know that I want to work with you. Just tell me how much it costs and when we get started. Like, it changed the dynamic of the actual sales conversation itself. So this is where I decided to duplicate my efforts the next time that I launched my offer. So I'm going to kind of recap what I did here. So I first niched on the person. I defined a program promise. I aligned the price with the return on investment. I started going live discussing topics aligned with what influenced the prospect's buying decision rather than creating content selling the benefits of my offer. I'm going to run that one back because this is really important. I went live discussing topics aligned with what influenced the prospect's buying decision rather than just selling the benefits of my offer. That is something that I noticed that I did really, really well. A lot of the previous coaches or programs that I had been a part of, when they ever told me to create content, they always taught me to create how-to content. Be very tactical. Teach people something new. What I learned that worked really well when I started looking back at my data on how I made that first 60K month was that my topics were not tactical. They were not teaching people what to do. They were not telling people what to do. It was teaching them how to think. I created content that was more based on psychographics and what was happening privately that was influencing how somebody made a buying decision, not trying to educate them on like something you could find on YouTube of like how to start a business. It wasn't tactical. It was much more mental, shifting beliefs, introducing perspectives, overcoming objections versus follow step 1, 2, 3. Go to yourgovernment.com to get your EIN number. And there's a huge difference. So I noticed that difference in how I was creating content or the messaging of my content. And the fifth thing that I did was I conducted sales calls on Zoom. So after using this framework multiple times, I would look at my data and document the framework. The next time that I would launch, I would look at the data, make improvements. What did I test? What worked out? And after me launching multiple times using this framework, this is what became my proprietary process that I teach clients today, the lean launch. Interesting how that is. A lot of the time, clients today will ask me, Jay, how do I build curriculum for my program? Your curriculum is really just a documentation of things that you actually did that led to a specific result that your clients are paying you to help them get themselves. That's it. And the reason, and I think about the lean launch is now this is my proprietary process. It's the cornerstone of every single thing I teach and everything I have been teaching for the last 5 years. Based off things that I actually did, based off of data that I was able to look at, based off of me relaunching and refining that one particular framework. Your framework is your intellectual property. Your intellectual property is your asset in your coaching business. You do not need to join somebody else's program and copy all their shit in order for you to make money. The way that you build your frameworks is by doing real work, getting real results from real actions that you are taking, and documenting the steps that you took that led to that result. And then teaching other people said process. That's all it is. So me doing that is what ended up now becoming my proprietary process, the lean launch. And it worked so well because it focused on the fundamentals of what people need to know in order to make a buying decision. And it also aligned with what I could actually execute. Like I said earlier, I was working 60 hours a week. I had just been promoted. So like I had a huge learning curve that I had at work, and I was not trying to compromise my work performance with this business. And I had limited capacity. So like I had this lean launch was so perfect for me because I didn't have to worry about like, figuring out how to run paid ads or how to come up with money for paid ads or how to write copy for paid ads or learning how to even set up my ads account because I wasn't running ads. It didn't require me to spend weeks building webinar decks. It didn't require me to spend, time writing email sequences. It rather focused my attention on creating immediate contact with my prospects and having real conversations. And I think that's really the difference between a lot of the marketing and launch strategies that are taught in our industry, that a lot of those tactics are not focused on immediate contact. They're focused on like more of a passive consumption, and they're not focused on human conversation. They're focused on passive sales. And I think that this was that big turning point for me of what I recognized, what type of launch method worked best when I was selling higher ticket. Because again, this coaching program was $9,000. So like a person who wants to pay $9,000 probably wants to talk to a real human being. And more than likely, they want to have some sort of contact being made at a very interpersonal level versus just them passively reading an email or them being sent to a sales page where they have to make the buying decision on their own. Like if you're selling something that's more than $3,000, there is an unwritten expectation that somebody's going to help guide them through that buying decision process. When you go buy an expensive car, you talk to a real person. A sales rep informs you of the vehicle, walks you through the features. If you're buying an expensive house, you have a real estate agent that is showing you the home, educating you on the home, helping you make the buying decision for yourself. When you go to an expensive ass restaurant, guess what that waiter is doing? They're describing every nuance of the special meal of the day. They're giving you the history of where this fish came from or how all fish is, imported every morning fresh. Like you get what I'm saying? There is a human being guiding you through the buying decision process. So when you're selling high ticket offers, stop treating it like McDonald's. When you go to McDonald's, ain't nobody guiding you through the buying decision process. They're like, what you want? Read the menu and tell me your number. Like you have to make every decision on your own. Like you don't go to McDonald's and be like, are those chicken nuggets? They're going to be like, ma'am, the chicken probably ain't even real. You already know what you get and just decide what you want. Like you guys get what I'm saying? So like that was something that I really learned the value of early on. That really helped me understand these nuanced differences between how you market and how you sell depending on the price of your program. Because the price of your program immediately informs people's perception of what like these unwritten expectations that they have. So that's where I started to notice, this is an unwritten expectation. And when I actually do focus on immediate contact with my content and I focus on having real conversations, baby girl gets the sale. So no matter what industry you're in, nothing beats human connection and nothing beats immediate contact. Very important. Okay, we're going to go into number 5. This is the last one, okay? The last thing that I did to make my first $150,000 online is I hired a coach and I joined a group coaching program. And I think I want to really break down why this was one of the most important things that I did, because as I was figuring these things out, a lot of the time I knew what I could do, but I severely lacked belief that I could do it. I knew what I could do. I knew what other people were doing online. I knew where people were making money, but there was this part of me that I lacked this belief that I could do it. That this little black girl could do it. That I could do it at my current state, at my age, where I was at in life. I lacked this belief that it would work for me. I knew it was working for other people, but I'm like, will this work for me? So going from selling a $180 program to charging $3,000 for private one-on-one coaching clients and then selling a $9,000 group program, that required a massive level in a massive up level in my in how I perceived myself. And if you are in a position right now where you know that you could be charging more, you know that the value of what you're delivering is at a greater level than how you've been positioning it, how you've been articulating yourself, how you've been marketing it, a lot of the time, the thing that you're missing is not what more to do. The issue is like you're lacking the belief that you can do it. You're lacking the belief that it will work for you. And you just might be now in a season where you need to up-level your self-identity. You need to up-level how you perceive yourself, and you need to up-level what you truly believe you're worthy of obtaining and what you're worthy of attracting. So there are strategies and experience I was able to leverage and shorten my learning curve and avoid common mistakes by hiring a coach or being in a group program. But the biggest thing that I got out of group programs at that stage of my business was being able to borrow somebody else's belief who was further along in the journey than me. And I could borrowing their belief helped me build my courage to actually take the step, to actually offer the program, to actually raise my price, to actually state that price the next time I was on a sales call. So being in a group program is really what I had to being in the right group program and hiring the right coach allowed me to safely borrow somebody else's belief where my belief was lacking. And I hired coaches. This is kind of how I started screening, because I've hired some very toxic coaches who have built their programs on very codependent, cult-like mentalities. Baby, it was not cute. But the coaches that really did align, I hired coaches who had achieved results that I aspired to accomplish first and foremost, with the business models that I desired to build. So in the beginning, I had to make sure that, okay, if I know that selling high ticket is important for me, I want to work with a coach that sells high ticket and coaches on growing high ticket offers, marketing for high ticket offers, selling for high ticket offers, delivering for high ticket clients. Because the marketing, the sales, the strategies that you will use are totally different when you're selling, again, a higher ticket program, because the perception is different. The expectations are different than when you're selling a lower ticket offer. So I wanted to make sure that I was hiring coaches who got the results that I personally wanted to get one day and had a business model aligned with what I wanted to build. And thirdly, whose values aligned with mine. I just want to exhale on that one, because you have to trust who is leading you. If you do not trust the person who is leading you, you're going to have a really difficult time actually implementing the things they tell you to do. So if the person that is leading you is a person that is an undercover racist, is a sexist, is discriminatory in their marketing, whatever it might be, maybe there's their beliefs on, they believe in working 80 hours a week. They don't believe in work-life balance. They use manipulative sales tactics, and that doesn't align with how you want to operate from your own personal integrity. When there's a misalignment in the values of who is leading you and what your value system is, there's going to be friction with actually doing the work that they're instructing you to do. So making sure that you, find a coach that you actually resonate with, that you believe in, that you can kind of see yourself in, that is living the type of lifestyle that you also want to have. Because anybody can make money, but it's how did they make their money? And you have to make sure that you're hiring a coach and you're in a peer group of people who are making money in the way that you also want to make it, using the values and operating out of a level of integrity that you also personally align with. So I needed to see possibility models. People who had done what I wanted to do to help me turn down the voices in my own head that were saying, no one will pay you that. You can't do that. Who are you to offer that? Those are all the things that I was telling myself. And I'm I needed to see other possibility models to help me bust my beliefs that were no longer serving me. So I also wanted to invest in the second part of this is there was this one part about it that really helped me as an individual. But the second part of this is that I wanted to invest in a program that I was personally selling. Because when I began transitioning from private one-on-one to group, I knew one of the biggest objections that I had to overcome was, why is group option better than hiring me privately? I knew the benefits it would give me. I knew what going to group would do for Jerisha. I was it'll give me more time. I'll be able to make more money. I'll be able to work with more clients. I'll be able to create more leverage, me. But I could not relate to why it would actually be more beneficial for the client, because I had never experienced it myself. And sometimes in order for you to be able to sell something with conviction, you have to personally experience it for yourself. So group programs really changed my life. Like to this day, I still invest in group programs. 70% of the friends that I have today are people that I met inside of a paid program that I was a part of. If you're someone who finds a lot of value in peer accountability and seeing possibility models and needing to borrow that belief from somebody else who's further along from you, group programs are one of the best learning environments. Like you're surrounded by people who are aiming to achieve the similar results, who are committed to the process, and they operate out of the same values as you. Like that peer accountability will put a fire up under you and help you maintain momentum even when you lose motivation. So I stumbled on these stepping stones really to make my first 150 grand, and these principles really became the foundation of the curriculum that I teach today. Like a lot of the curriculum that I teach today is founded on what made me my first 150 grand. And these same principles are the same things that I do today. I still do live streams. I still send people DMs telling them thank you for joining my live streams. I still use sales calls and personalized private conversations to lead people into making a buying decision. I lead group coaching programs because group coaching programs changed my life. Like I know the value of them, and that's why that's what I sell. I only sell group programs. And like next year might be your breakthrough year. And like, if you need to borrow my belief along the way, my belief bank is open, okay? So out of these things that I shared, if you are somebody, we're opening up a 12-week cohort called Lean Launch, where we're going to be guiding a small group of clients through this exact same process, really focusing on how do you validate your offer, articulate your value, and start to raise the price of your program so that you can be attracting and working with private one-on-one clients, so that you can start to recognize the patterns that you're seeing from client to client so that you can transition to group delivery the same way that I did. So if you're interested in applying for this cohort, you can visit jerishahawk.com/apply. The link is in my bio. You can also send me a direct message on Instagram with the word cohort, and Betty the bot will send you the link. She's my automated assistant. She will send you the link on how to apply. And my audience, you guys have been asking me to bring this back or do a version of this for a long time. So I'm really excited that we're going to be able to offer this and that we're going to be introducing this, and that, I wanted to walk you guys through my journey, because I think sometimes we can underestimate our beginnings. And our beginnings, I know for me, is the catalyst for every ounce of success that I've had today. So I'm really excited to teach you the fundamentals. Like this is the same things that I teach my clients today that I've been teaching for the last 5 or 6 years around lean launching, niching down, using your data to inform your decision making. And we're going to be having, again, a 12-week cohort, a clear start, a clear end date. Everybody's going to be going through the exact same steps at the same time. And every single person will launch their offer in 90 days using this method. So if you know that you're like, I want that momentum, I want that peer accountability, I'm ready to elevate my business model, I'm ready to raise my price point, and I want to start validating my offer so that I can transition to group in the next 6 months, this cohort is for you. So click the link in my bio, jerishahawk.com/apply, and get your application in. We're going to be reviewing applications on a first come, first served basis. And once we fill the spots, baby, we're shutting it down. Now, the Jerisha today ain't the Jerisha that I was back in 2017. So I think that we'll actually sell out based off of like how much demand we've already had. And good Lord, like we've had 32 people already apply. So I encourage you to apply. I'll be reading every application that comes in, and my goal is just to help you make the best next step decision, whether that's with us, whether that's with somebody else. But you guys can go ahead and apply. Let's get into some Q&A, shall we? I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I'm trying to practice talking into the camera, like into my like DSLR camera Canon thingamabob. So that was my practice today. Child. Stressful. But let's get into questions. I'm going to open up comments over here. Oh, Uzoma said, that's the part many coaches don't teach, maturity in business. Nah, child, they don't. I think one thing that I hope you guys really enjoy about how I communicate is that One day I'm going to write a book. One day I'm going to write a book, and it's going to be called The Fine Print of Being a CEO. And the fine line is going to be all like, I'm going to tell you the things that a business book written by a white man will never say. There are small, minute nuances that I think a lot of white coaches, both female and male, miss out on communicating because they've had the privilege of not having to overcome that hurdle. And as a black woman, a brown woman, a black man, a brown man, a black individual, a brown individual, if you are an individual from a marginalized community, even if you are a white woman, many of us there are unique barriers that we experience in our path to growing our businesses that other demographics never have to overcome. So they never can speak to it in their marketing because they don't even know it exists. They don't even know it's a barrier that you have to address. So when I talk about maturity in business, listen, y'all, I don't have white privilege. I have light skin privilege. So there are privileges that I have as a light skinned woman who looks the way that I do, that lived where I lived. There are some privileges that I had. But when it comes to building a business, there are like that credibility, that instantaneous trust. Like if there was a white woman selling the exact same thing as me, let me pause for a minute because I'm about to get real racial real quick, but I'm going to keep it 100. Let me pause. Do I have permission to go there? Like, do I have permission to just like keep it 100 with y'all real quick? I'm going to wait for some consent before I go into this because either somebody might need to put some headphones on. You might choose to exit stage left. You might be like, I don't want to be a part of this conversation. But I do want to have this conversation if we can get some consent. Okay, I got some yeses, and we gave some people time to exit stage left if this is not for them. When I think about why I am so specific in my marketing content, why I am so specific in the type of client that I serve, why I am so specific about having a program promise, even why I'm specific about saying, there's you guys have probably heard variations of what I shared today from other people, but I guarantee you have not heard the level of specificity in how I described it today. And this is the reason why. Being a black woman, there's a level of privilege that we do not have when we are communicating our expertise and sharing the results that we deliver. And let me know if this is true for you. This is definitely my experience. If this is also your experience, throw some hearts on the screen or give me some like verbal cues in the comments. But like if a white man, John, Ben, Ted, Chad, any one of them, David, any one of them, if they came into a room and was like, I run a business, it's 7 figures, people will just assume that they are telling the truth. There's a privilege that white people have that people will just trust that they are successful because they look like they're successful or because of how they're dressed or just by the sheer fact of what color their skin is. As a black woman, if I walk into a room and say I have a business and I make 7 figures, I'm about to get the 3rd degree questionnaire. It turns into 50 Cent 21 questions. Where'd you go to school? What kind of business is it? What's your profit margin? How do you make money? So like, who's your mentor? Like who'd you learn from? Like they're looking for a point of validation to normalize that in their brain. You guys get what they're looking to try to normalize or to create some sort of validation, some sort of connection of like, how did this person who looks like this, how are they in this position at this level of success? Like they'll try to poke the holes and like, well, wait a minute. She too damn cute. So like, what does your husband do? It's like, bitch, this my money. I make this. This my business. They're like, so you guys get what I'm saying? So and that's something that, that's cost of entry into this world. Like I think sometimes at the end of the day, we have to just understand what it is. You got to just understand what it is. So like this is why I'm so specific when I teach my clients when it comes to marketing, when it comes to messaging, why having a program promise is so specific and so important, why niching down is important is because that is a barrier of perception that you have to overcome just because you are black, just because you are brown, just because you are a woman. It is a perception that we always have to overcome, but it's unspoken. Nobody's going to come out and say, oh, you black, I don't believe you make this much money. But I guarantee you people privately think it. When they see me online, and I guarantee you have thought it. When you look at other people online who are quote unquote successful, you will look at their image, you will look at their website, you will look at their content, and you immediately form perceptions. You immediately have a bias, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, but there is a bias. And people will say, I don't know. I don't know if I can trust this person. I don't know if that person really making that kind of money. I don't know if this person is a scam. Shit, why do most people think that Black business owners are the scam? Because it looks too good to be true, because they can't, in their brain, they can't even rationalize somebody who looks like you having that level of success. Girl, somebody said in the comments who she sleep with. Child, let's not go there today. Wait a minute. Woo! But like there is an unspoken rule of being black while building a business. It's an unspoken, like I always talk about like the unwritten rules of like, you know, becoming a millionaire while black. Like that's one of those unwritten rules. It's sad, but it's the reality. And why is it the reality? Because the country, America, this shit was founded on slavery. Like this stuff is embedded. This stuff, I don't care if it's 2023. I don't care how long ago slavery was. Like this stuff is still embedded in the ecosystem of how we operate. It's still embedded in the systematic structure of how businesses, institutions, education is created. It is still embedded in media, how we are portrayed on television, how we are portrayed in movies, which actors we see as the stars. It is what it is. So instead of being mad at the system, just understand what the system is and beat the game. And being specific, niching down, having a program promise, being able to articulate your value, that is how you earn the privilege that white people have naturally because of their skin. Your ability to articulate your value is how you buy yourself that privilege. You being able to deliver on the value that you articulated that is how you earn the privilege. That is how you buy the privilege in this country as a black and a brown person, even as a woman. So like, I'm sharing what most people don't talk about this because one, it's not cute, like it's not palatable, but it's very, very real. This shit is real. Like this is not a game. Like this is very real. So that's why I'm so specific, because I'm overcoming a bias that naturally most people have, that I even have, because we were taught to have this bias in this country. We were taught to second guess. And because there's not a lot of examples, many of us do not personally know millionaires that are black. Many of us don't know people who have this level of success that look the way that I look, or that maybe look the way that you look. So there's this level of hesitancy of like, dang it, how is this person, like, I see Takora Davis is on right now. She's a lawyer. She's one of my very first clients. She was one of those first people that bought that 6-month program years ago. But I know that Takora, like as a lawyer, and Takora is beautiful, honey. Like Takora is one of the most beautiful women I've ever met in my life, internal and external. But there are people who second guess her. I know people who second guess her ability. Like, I don't know lawyers who look like you. Should I trust you? I don't know millionaires who look like you. Should I trust you? I don't know business owners who look like you. Should I trust this? And it ain't even got nothing to do with you. It just has to do with our society, how the system is set up. Like that's just what it is. So once we can recognize that, and no, that's just a fact. This is just reality, y'all. This is what it is. It's like, how do I manufacture that privilege when I wasn't born with it? Being able to effectively articulate your value, being able to clarify a program promise, being able to speak to the specifics, that is how you earn that privilege. That is how you can override it. Because at the end of the day, you cannot argue with the facts. At the end of the day, we cannot debate the results. Period. Like, that is one thing nobody can ever take away from you, is the results that you have gotten. And if you are communicating the truth, articulating your value with the results that you have gotten, you can't question it, because this shit is real. You can't manufacture that. So that's the last thing I'll say on that. Girl, child, I can get on this, okay? So Jasmine Henderson said, how do you balance working 60 hours and facilitate a group program? This is a good question. By not doing too damn much. Like the only way that I was able to facilitate a group program while working 60 hours a week is by maintaining a level of simplicity in what I was delivering, who I was serving, and removing as much complication as possible. Anytime we add an option, we add complexity. And anytime that we're trying to solve too many problems, we're adding in layers of complexity. So I did not have the privilege at that stage of my business growth to be doing everything, because I did not have the time I didn't have the time to do everything. So I had to be decisive in who I was going to work with, what problem I was going to solve, the process I was going to take them through, and how I structured that program. Like, I had to be very decisive because I didn't have the privilege of just like excess time. And if you're in a position right now where you have limited time, that's actually a benefit for you. Many of my clients who don't have the pressure of like their job or the pressure of having to perform, the pressure of having to make money, they will sometimes delay making the tough decisions in their business because they have the luxury of not having to figure it out or not having to decide right away. So honestly, Jasmine, if you're in a position where you're working 60 hours a week, if you've already validated demand with like 8 or 10 private one-on-one clients at the price point that you want to be selling your group program for, now think about it. Before I was working with 8 or 10 private one-on-one clients, I was having like weekly coaching calls, and I would work on the weekends. I worked on Saturdays, I worked on Sundays, and I worked after I got home. So I would work, between 5 and 9. Well, I didn't get home until about 6. I would work between like 7 and 10 p.m. during the week. My Saturday mornings were dedicated to my business. My Sundays after church were dedicated to my business. So my week, if you really think about it, if you work 2 hours a week during the week in the evenings, that's 10 hours. And then I would work 8 hours a day on Saturday and Sunday, usually. That's 28 to 8, 16. That's 26 hours. That's a part-time job. You can get a lot done. Sacrificing your Saturday, sacrificing your Sunday, and sacrificing a few evenings of the week. Now, I also know I was able to sacrifice 25 hours a week in my business because I was not dating. I was not married. I did not have no kids. I didn't even have a dog. But that was intentional for me. So you have to ask yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice in the short term to set yourself up for the long-term gain? And I think all of us are in different positions of life. All of us are going to choose to sacrifice something different, but sacrifice doesn't have to mean struggle. Sacrifice just means I'm going to give up maybe doing this one thing and replace it with doing something else that's going to benefit the future version of myself. It's going to benefit, the future, like it's going to benefit where it is that I'm trying to go. So that's how I managed it. I would have coaching calls on Saturday mornings or Saturday afternoons. I used to do my sales calls on my lunch breaks or on my commute ride home. I would work on the business in the evenings. And again, I would work on the business over the weekends. So that's how I did it. That is how I did it. And I was very mindful about what I said yes to at work. So I had to really start to enforce really healthy boundaries in my work environment to make sure that I wasn't out here. I was doing the most, but I wasn't overdoing it at my job. And I wanted to make sure that I was balancing that so that when I did come home, I could still, turn off and check back into to the next business. That was a really great question. My dear Ariane said, how do you decide how small or exclusive to keep the group program? I use my data. If you've already been working with private one-on-one clients, this is what most people do. They decide what their group container is going to be based off of how much money they want to make and how many clients they want to serve. That's really beautiful. It's fine and dandy, but your desire is not the same thing as what is your data telling you about the demand that you have created. So I always would set my targets for how big the group would be based off of what demand I thought existed for what it was that I was selling. So if you're selling private one-on-one, this is why I think people try to transition to group delivery prematurely, is that if you're having a difficult time, if you're not even enrolling private one-on-one clients regularly, or if it's sporadic, it's you don't even have enough demand to go to group yet. Group is anything 2 people or more. So let me clarify that. Group is 2 people or more. If you got more than one person, you got a group, okay? You and 2 clients, child, that's a whole triangle. That's a group. That is a small group circle at church, okay? That counts. God said when 2 or more people form, That's how we got to pray it up. So that's, you got 2 people, that's a group. But if set the number of what your enrollment is based off of what your conversion rates are, based off of how much demand you've generated, based off of, the numbers of how many private one-on-one clients, sales calls, applications that you're used to receiving. Because that will really give you a more realistic expectation of what you're going to sell into this group program. So if you have if you're not even selling private one-on-one consistently, or if you are not consistent in your marketing, if and you're just thinking, oh, I'm going to launch this group and like demand is just going to miraculously show up, guess again. Like, it rarely happens that way. And usually for most of us, group is harder to sell because we're used to only communicating the value of private one-on-one access. So it's a new skill set for us to like learn how to articulate our value. Like, more of our ducks have to be in a row when you go to group, because you need to be able to articulate your value. You need to be able to clarify a program promise. You need to be able to convey that. So I recommend setting the container for how many clients you build your group around based off of the demand that the data you have about the demand that you've created for your private one-on-one clients. Tracy said she loves my blouse. Y'all, it's a dress, but thank you so much. I think it's so cute. How built out was your framework for one-on-one coaching before you started? It wasn't built out. This is something that I teach my clients all the time. Like, when you are working with private one-on-one, one of the benefits that you have when you're working privately one-on-one is the flexibility to kind of like structure your curriculum in a customized manner with your clients real time. That's one of the benefits of doing one-on-one in the beginning, because your framework is not yet documented. You don't know. So let me give some context. When you are doing private one-on-one, you need to be selling and teaching how to get a result that you have personally gotten for yourself. That's very important. So I am not out here saying, I don't do yoga. I'm not about to be out here saying I'm going to teach yoga instructors how to lead yoga classes when I ain't never done that shit before. Like, just because I've been to a yoga class and I've watched a yoga video on YouTube does not mean that I know how to teach a yoga instructor how to design their flow for leading a yoga class, right? So there is some context. If you have to sell and be teaching somebody how to do something based off of a result that you have actually gotten, based off of experience you actually have. So if that is true, you know how to help that person get the result. Like, if somebody called you today and was like, I see Denzel just joined. Hey, Denny. Denzel, I'm going to use Denzel as an example. I've known Denzel since I was, Denzel, how long have I known you? I've known you since I was in college. Woo, child, I've known you for over a decade. So when I think about Denny, for example, Denny, you were in like the diversity, equity, inclusion space at Meta, were you? I think you used to do something for interns. Denny also makes art. That's what I really know Denny for. Denny makes his own art. And Denny sells his art. Denny has, art shows, and he gets his art in galleries and stuff like that. Now, if Denzel, based off of his real experience, I'm going to use this as an example. Based off of his real experience, if Denzel created a coaching program, teaching other artists how to get their art inside of a gallery, how to sell their art to galleries, if somebody else on here was an artist and wanted to figure out how to sell their art to galleries, Denny would know how to help that person get that result because he's done it before. It doesn't matter whether or not he has it documented on paper, if he has pre-recorded modules developed, it doesn't matter. He knows how to do it because he's done it before. So when you're working with private one-on-one clients, nothing has to be documented because you know how to do it. And when you're working with private one-on-one clients, as long as when you're in your coaching sessions, you're actually teaching them what they need to do and you're guiding them through the process, you're just doing it manually with them and you're doing it alongside them. You're telling them, like, you're kind of consulting, teaching, and coaching all in one to help them get that result. So that's really what it boils down to. And then over time, like I mentioned earlier in the episode, is like after I was working with maybe 8 or 10 private one-on-one clients trying to get the same result, I started to notice patterns. And those patterns is what helped me start to document my intellectual property and turn my intellectual property into a more structured framework. But you don't have a framework until you've actually proven that you can that process works over and over and over again. Just because you've done it once doesn't mean like you have a framework yet. It just means you know how to get a result. Now, once you start getting that result repeatedly, now that repetition in your ability to get that result, that repetition is what validates that a framework exists within this ecosystem of whatever it is that you're doing or teaching. Really great question. Y'all, I've been on for an hour and a half. I cannot believe this many of you guys are still on right now. I'm not going to be able to get through all the questions, but I'm going to screenshot them because I will be doing a few more live streams in the coming weeks. So I will screenshot these questions and answer them later. Let me see if there was any others. So if you guys are interested in applying for our 12-week cohort, just click the link in my bio on Instagram. If you're watching this on Facebook, there's a link in the title of this live stream. Or you can send me a direct message over on Instagram with the word cohort, and Betty the bot, my automated assistant, will send you the link to apply. Even since we've been on this live stream, oh, good Lord, about another 5 of y'all have already applied since we've been on this live stream. So I encourage you to apply, and we'll be able to help determine what the best next step for you is. So I'm really excited about this. We haven't done a cohort-based program in almost 2 years. And we haven't done something that, up until like now for the last 3 years, you couldn't work with me unless you paid $18,000. That's just where I've been playing in the ball game. So this is the first time in a long time we're creating more accessibility I think that we're in a really unique time in our economy. With inflation going up, a lot of people are being laid off right now. I think people are seeking what is a way for me to create more security in how I make money beyond just only trusting the paycheck from a corporation. And I understand that. And it's like that part of me feels this responsibility as well to like be a solution in this time for individuals who are in that phase where they're really trying to create their own career path versus going back to the job market. Or maybe they're in a full-time job, but they're like, I need to do what you did, Dre. Like, I need to build up some sustainable income on the side. Hey, Nikki. Hey, boo. All my friends are joining. I'm about to get off. But yeah. Okay. So, y'all, that's what I got tonight. Hey, Precious. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. As always, screenshot, tag me, let me know what your top takeaways were. And I would love to just send you thank you. So if you were on here live, send me a DM right now and just tell me that you were live. Just type in the word live, and I would love to just send you a personal message saying thank you. So thank you guys for hopping on. Thanks for tuning in. Get your applications in if you're interested in the 12-week cohort, and I look forward to seeing you guys and talking to you guys soon.